All right, we've shown you the 2021 schedule for Tennessee. Now we're going to project what their record will be based on that schedule. And I want to make it clear that this is not a prediction, not an official prediction. That won't come for many months. This is simply a projection based on this schedule. And we're just kind of basing this off of where the teams finished last year, what they have coming back in 2021, and maybe even looking at some of those head-to-head matchups from last season. So let's get into it here. Last year, again, 3-7 for Tennessee. Very tough year, but it was a tough schedule. This year, there are some easy wins where there were no easy wins for them last year, except maybe Vanderbilt. This is the scale that we'll use to do this projection. If it's in the white, if we keep it in the white, it's a 50-50 game pretty much, 41 to 59%. Less than 10% in the red, 10 to 25% in orange, 26 to 40% in yellow, 60 to 74 in purple, 75 to 90 in blue. If it's more than 90%, then we're going to put it in the green. And for Tennessee, there are just so many question marks. We don't know really what this team is going to be. We know Tennessee is not going to be a great team. We don't know if they're going to be terrible or if they're going to be okay. That's what it comes down to. Josh Heupel coming in, maybe the offense clicks, maybe they're at least explosive on that side of the ball. But just when you look at the overall roster, it's just not there. They lost too much. I mean, they lost over 20 players just in the transfer portal. So we don't expect it to be a great year. But, again, they can compete with a lot of the teams on this schedule. And I do think they get an easy win there with Tennessee Tech. As bad as Tennessee potentially could be, they have no chance of losing to Tennessee Tech. That one's not going to happen. I'm going to give them a win there. And on a normal year, these next games in blue would probably be in green, but you never know. I think Bowling Green and South Alabama are capable group of 5 teams that could potentially play with Tennessee if they are terrible. Remember, just a couple of years ago, they lost to Georgia State. So you never know. And South Alabama, Bowling Green, 2 teams that are not great group of 5 teams, but they're not terrible. I think Tennessee is going to be favored by double digits in these games. They should win, but you never know. So that's why we're going to put them in the blue. And then we go to the other side. Well, actually, we go to the purple now. So do we have any games here where Tennessee is going to be favored by about a touchdown? Games that they will be favored in, but not by a lot. I think you got one. I think that's Vanderbilt. I think Tennessee will be favored against Vandy. Vandy also going through a coaching change. They lost, they didn't lose as much as Tennessee, but they lost some guys. And Tennessee beat them last year 42-17 on the road. This year it is at home, and Tennessee finished ahead of Vanderbilt last year. So I think you can say that Vandy will be a game where Tennessee is favored. But with all the question marks, I don't want to put that in the blue. I really just don't know how much better Tennessee will be. So that's a game where they'll be favored. Only 4 games where I think Tennessee will be a clear favorite. And now we go to the other side of this, the games where they will be a clear underdog. And I'm saying less than 10%. We got 2, Alabama and Georgia. Tennessee is not winning those games. Both teams are going to be top 5 teams this year. Tennessee just will not be able to compete. So I think we can clearly say that they will lose those 2 games. We go now to the orange, and this is kind of where I've struggled with Tennessee. Which opponents do I put in the orange? Which in the yellow? Which in the white? It's kind of tough because, again, there are so many question marks with Tennessee. But I'm going to put 2 teams in the orange, Florida and Ole Miss. Florida on the road. I know Florida's losing a lot, but playing that game on the road, it's going to be very tough for Tennessee. Florida's still a much more talented team. And I'm also going to put Ole Miss in here. This is one I really struggle with. I could maybe see them being in the yellow just because, Ole Miss talent-wise is not going to overwhelm you. But I just look at that offense and how explosive they're going to be and everything they have coming back. I really believe this is a top 25 team this year. Playing at home for Tennessee, maybe they have a chance, but I'm going to say it's a 10 to 25% chance for Tennessee. I really like Ole Miss in that game. Now we look to the yellow, 26 to 40%. These are games where I think Tennessee is going to be about a 7-8 point underdog, about a touchdown underdog. And I think you can give them a couple here. Missouri and Kentucky. I think they will be underdogs, but these are games that Kentucky will have a chance in. I mean, I know they got blown out by Kentucky last year, but that game really didn't indicate where the teams finished the season. Just like with Missouri. I mean, Tennessee beat Missouri last year, but Missouri was clearly the better team by the end of the year. Plus, that game was at Tennessee. This year, it's at Missouri. So I think when you look at where these teams are expected to be this year, where they're expected to be in the SEC, These are clearly games where Tennessee will be an underdog. And then that leaves Pittsburgh and South Carolina. South Carolina, another team with a lot of question marks. I think Tennessee and South Carolina are going to be very similar in 2021, and that is really one that could go either way. That's the swing game. If Tennessee can win that game, they'll have a chance. They'll have a chance to get to maybe 6 wins. Now, I don't know if they're even going to be eligible for a bowl game. They'll probably have sanctions, so it may not matter. But still, psychologically, it's nice to get to 6-6, to not have a losing record, and that could be the game that determines it. Pittsburgh, also, I think, a winnable game for Tennessee. I would probably favor Pitt, but not by a lot. It's a team that does bring back Kenny Pickett, but they weren't great last year, so I think playing at home, Tennessee will have a chance in that game. I think it's close to a 50-50 game, although, again, I think Pitt is probably favored by 3 or 4 points. So when we look at all of this, we get a projection. We count the blue and the green games as wins. We count the red and the orange games as losses. Then we average everything else out. Yellow at 40%, white at 50%, purple at 60%. It's not a perfect formula, but it's just kind of what we do here to get a rough projection. So for Tennessee, when you do that, the projection for this team comes out to 5-7. 5-7 for the Vols. Now, if we change some things around here, because they're close, they're very close to 6-6 with the projection. If we bump Ole Miss into the yellow and say that they will have a chance in that game, the projection goes up to 6-6. If we bump Vandy up to the blue, the projection goes up to 6-6. But at the same time, I think Pittsburgh, you can make an argument for that one to go down in the yellow. Missouri maybe in the orange. So there are a lot of games that could be moved around just a little bit. I think the way we did it is pretty fair. And again, the projection for Tennessee based off of these numbers, 5-7. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think this team could be better or maybe they'll be worse? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. And thank you for watching this video.